Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Hey, docs, welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, and today I bring on a longtime friend, business partner, guest, someone I've collaborated a lot throughout the years, even when we weren't working together, Dr. Bobby Maybee of the Forward Thinking Chiropractic Alliance, and excited to have him back on the show. Someone I like to bring on to get a kind of a pulse of the profession, things that we're excited about, things that we're concerned about, optimism about certain things, and just trying to really extract some wisdom from him. Someone that's really in all circles, whether it's working with state associations or ACA, or obviously I think it's an 11,000 person Facebook group now, the FTCA. So check out that Facebook group if you are a evidence-informed chiropractor. A lot of great conversations go on in that Facebook group. It's one of the, I think it was probably the first Facebook group for evidence-based, evidence-informed chiropractors, and has grown exponentially, and just a lot of great information in there. And this episode with Bobby is no different. He always brings a level of deep thinking and wisdom that you don't see from everybody. And so I encourage you to buckle in and turn on your thinking cap a little bit, because Bobby's going to bring some great information and some deep insights to the evidence-informed chiropractic practice. Without further ado, here is my interview with Dr. Bobby Maybee. All right, excited to have Bobby Maybee on here. You were one of the first episodes I had that blew up when I started this podcast 7 years ago. It kind of was one of those hockey stick listenership for that episode, and you've been on a couple other times, but it's been probably a few years. So welcome to the show. Most probably know what you're doing and who you are, but let's not assume, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I make no assumptions anymore. My how the stars have fallen. This is a weird, I guess, business or a weird place to be in, where if you're not like constantly in people's faces, they will easily forget about you, and that's okay. Doesn't mean things aren't still going on. I think a lot of the things I'm doing now are more background oriented or profession facing. So I do a lot with the American Chiropractic Association now. I'm the House of Delegates representative for the state of Oregon. So I was elected. I think I won by 4 votes, and there were only 6 votes total.
This sounds like a Florida political race. Is usually like by 100 votes or something.
It was tight for the region. No, but I've been representing the Oregon and the HOD for 2 years now. I do a lot of work with the Oregon Board of Chiropractic Examiners, their peer review committee. It's a interesting thing that we have in the state of Oregon, where if the board needs certain behaviors, such as billing or practice type behaviors, to be reviewed for those docs that get in trouble, there's a committee that is assigned to sort of review chart notes, review billing practices and business behaviors, all those sort of things, and say, as a group of peers, this is not appropriate for what we would expect a chiropractor in the state of Oregon to provide as care or standard of care or whatnot. Or this is just fine. There's nothing to see here, type of stuff, based on what our scope of practice is, which is pretty large. So there's a lot of work there that, there's no stardom there. But what I found when working with these types of organizations is there's hundreds, if not thousands, of chiropractors that do this work day in and day out across the country, across the globe, and they get no thanks and no love. And there's a lot of work, and it keeps the profession going, and almost nobody appreciates it. But there's tons of people doing it, and I can see them, and I see their names everywhere now, because it's the same names over and over again. And I try to give them a big hug and say thanks for the work you're doing. Now, other than that, we have our FTCA, the Forward Thinking Chiropractic, and we have Chiropractic Success Academy, which we can talk about, I'm sure, as we go through this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that kind of stuck out as you were chatting was, I was just at a strategic coach conference, and one of the speakers was about personal branding, and she kind of had this continuum of a lot of people. And it's almost like it seems a little bit like the four quadrants, but it's definitely different, and it's a spectrum. And typically, a lot of person goes from an operator to an integrator to a visionary to an advisor to an investor. And it seems like, there's no doubt in your career, you've been the operator and you've definitely been the visionary. And the FTCA's, I think, got 11,000 members now in the Facebook group, which is wild. And
Yeah.
so that's still a big part of it. And it seems like you've kind of moved into a lot of the advising role, which comes with wisdom. And it's cool to see that progression now that we are hitting our prime age of our 40s, right?
I like going back and doing it all over again. Like I like hitting an advisory role and not being comfortable and thinking that I know everything or that I know what's going on. And I like diving back in and finding what's wrong and trying to break things. So my personality is grading in that, and that,
Mhm.
this is a profession of people who love to serve people and help people and make sure people are happy and pain free. And I
Mhm.
like to create discomfort in a lot of places. I
Mhm.
like to
Mhm.
break things down and then rebuild them up. And that attracts a certain patient base too in my practice. But um, I'm never comfortable just being happy and just there. I like,
Mhm.
once I'm comfortable, and I think it's truly an entrepreneur's mindset. Once I feel a little bit savvy, I start to get uncomfortable. Like, okay,
Mhm.
what am I missing here? What's in my blind spots that I don't see? And then I dive back in as an operator and I try to break things down again and see if I can build them up even better. For instance, right now in Chiropractic Success Academy, as an
Mhm.
example, we have a fantastic product.
Yep.
It's a monthly membership. It's like a gym membership for getting better at chiropractic stuff,
Mhm.
the business and management operations sides of stuff. Um, but we still assigned based on, my motivation. You're probably more comfortable than I am with the product. I
Mhm.
still assigned a group of secret shoppers to go in there and tell me everything that's wrong with it.
Yep.
Tell me how it does not work for you. Tell me how to break it. Show me what parts of the internet, the website aren't working for you so we
Mhm.
can make it better again. And you've recommended that for people's practices as well, secret shoppers, and
Mhm.
I think it's very necessary.
Yeah, and I think it's a credit to a beginner's mindset, which you need to have. I think some of the ones that can maintain that as we go along in our careers is great. And there's a really good book I wrote called, or sorry,
You
not a really
wrote
good book.
another book?
No, no,
Jeez.
Freudian slip. A really good book
How
I
many
read.
ca-
Actual person that wrote that was Arthur Brooks, and it really talks about, you and I are in our mid 40s now, and it's going from one strength to the next strength. And that first set of years, they talk about having a fluid intelligence. And he dives into the fact that why are most tech startup entrepreneurs in their 20s, why are most, if you look at rock and roll musicians, they're 70 something years old, but it's been about 50 years since they've had some fresh songs and material. But then as you age, you get into more of a crystallized intelligence, and you have to kind of bridge that chasm from the first to the second, and that's going to be more of your wisdom. And it was a really good book to kind of help me out, kind of bridge that chasm of, all right, I can't at 44, I have no desire to do some of the shit that I did at 28 or 32,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Just no chance. But at the same time, I've built up, other, let's call it, aspects of my skill set that I can leverage to do things. And I think that's where it's exciting for, say you and I at this kind of juncture of our career to advise in certain roles. But the key is not to get, set in your ways and to have that beginner's mindset. So I think that's a big thing to have for sure.
Absolutely. I think a big part of those early years are trying to stomp your boot into the world and say, I'm here and this is what I can do. And by the time you get to our age, you've done it
Mhm.
more or less, and you know what value you can bring to the world, and you start to hone in that value and start to deliver it more efficiently. Especially
Yeah.
with a different mindset, instead of a mindset of conquest, it becomes more of a mindset of service as you get older too.
Yeah, and that's what I thought it was a good segue from what you said into kind of that book and where we're at. And we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about kind of the evidence informed, evidence based side of our profession, which is a big part of your vision over the last 10 years at least, if not longer, has, with your whole group. And and everything has been to try to lift this side of the spectrum of chiropractors up. And we're going to just look at what are some of the current state of it and thoughts on it, what the future excitement is for you and myself, and then our biggest concerns. So let's roll right out with it. What are some of your current insights or thoughts on the evidence-based? We're just going to call it the evidence-based crowd. I know people kind of go back and forth between informed and based, but just make it easy.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, let's go dark first, right? Let's start with what we're not comfortable with or what's concerning. Um, is that kind of where we want to start? Is it uncomfortable or I'm
Let's go with
I'm
the
I'm concerned with people's concern with comfort. Let's put
mhm,
it that way.
yeah.
So we can't deny that the chiropractic profession, even if the percentage is starting to skew a little bit more away
Mhm,
from the entrepreneur, I mean, there's definitely many more opportunities now to not get into the rat race of being an entrepreneur or a solo practitioner or even owning a business yourself. These days, you can work for the VA or
mhm,
they're more lucrative or well-paying employee opportunities
mhm,
and research opportunities available and education, things like that. But still overwhelmingly, this is an entrepreneur's gig. This is a eat what you kill gig still.
mhm,
So I was concerned a couple of weeks ago, a week or two ago, and I've seen it also on X, Twitter, and
mhm,
other places like that, this sort of meme that's popping up, which is sort of like what it takes to live comfortably in the United States, like an annual
mhm,
salary to live comfortably. And somebody had put it into the Facebook sphere, like, oh my gosh, look what it takes to live comfortably state to state. And we don't even make that as chiropractors, blah, blah, blah. And I hear it. Like I try to steel man everyone's position now. Once you get around like 11,000 people,
mhm,
you can't just listen to the one loudest tweeter or
yeah.
twatter or Twitter or whatever. You
Xer.
have to sort of also consider the people who are not saying anything and what would the
Mhm,
opposition say in all these situations. And I hear it. I hear the desire to live comfortably. I hear that. Wouldn't that be nice? Think about your businesses. And I think about my business. How awesome would it be just to be comfortable
mhm, yeah.
and not have to get up and try to punch back at the world every single day? And then the other part of me got kind of mad, like not at the person, but at the people who think that way. Like, hey, I don't want to use, hey, asshole, like this is an entrepreneur gig. Like, there's no such thing as comfortable. And then presentism comes to mind.
Mhm,
And when has anyone in human history, like hundreds of thousands of years of human history, why are we the only people to ever talk about living comfortably? Because it hasn't been a thing throughout human history to just live, air quotes, comfortably.
yeah.
We've all animals, all
Mhm,
mammals, all reptiles, you don't get the luxury of living comfortably. It's a freaking war out there.
yeah.
And what makes you think that you're so special that you get to obfuscate that responsibility or you get to hide away or not have to accept the responsibility that it's always going to be uh, the survival of the fittest, just an absolute battle,
Yeah.
especially to get to the top of the rat race where you might consider it comfortably. There's no comfort there either. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I saw the numbers, and sometimes you'll see a statistic where it's, like 90,000 a year, whatever, depending on what state you live in. And the
Mhm,
one that they had referenced and one that I've seen float around has just got ridiculous numbers for what it takes to live comfortably. I don't know who
mhm,
made it up, but it's
yeah.
like 3 times the amount of salary you'd imagine. Like, if you want to live comfortably in Mississippi, you need $250,000 a year. So I'm like, that is ridiculously
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, so one, the stats are wrong. Two, even if you got to that level and you were making $250,000 a year in Mississippi, you're
Mhm,
still not going to be comfortable. There isn't, that doesn't exist. The comfort comes from your own satisfaction, your own personal goals, your own spirituality around money and family and things like that. And to think that some sort of dollar amount's going to make you comfortable, especially in this world, is ridiculous. So
yeah,
knock it off.
it's definitely an internal thing, and I think what's happened is people's their gauge or what they think is comfortable is off, right? Like to be
Right.
comfortable now versus say our parents to be comfortable then. Like now it's crazy what people think they need to be comfortable versus what people thought they or knew they needed to be comfortable before. And I think that's what's skewed. Like if you ask someone what's comfortable, it's having a $65,000 car, it's being able to shop at Whole Foods every time, it's be able to have 14 different subscriptions to watch different entertainment. Like it's just the level of comfort is what has been probably skewed or what they assume is comfortable.
Absolutely. It's the stoicism that comes with a older age and
Hmm.
getting kicked in the teeth as an entrepreneur over and over again brings about a whole lot of comfort.
Yeah.
I think at any time where you could have or you have lost everything or almost everything and then got it all back again
Yeah.
brings you a whole lot of comfort. There's anxiety there too, but
Hmm.
there's comfort in knowing, like my wife always freaks out about taxes, and taxes are always one sort of financial thing you want to get a really good hold on as an entrepreneur. But she's always freaks out. Always, it's just an internal.
Hmm.
Maybe she learned it from her dad or something. Like I don't know what it is, but she loses her mind about taxes every year. I'm like, yeah, we make money, we got to pay money. It's like,
Hmm.
and her job in the family is always to sort of like reduce the
Hmm.
outflow, and my job is just sort of like to maximize the income. Not that she doesn't generate her own great income herself, but she has a job, so it's steady,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? And then mine can go anywhere. But the taxes are always the freak out. It's like you can have that anxiety, or you can just be resigned to the fact that, you know, Uncle Sam and the state, they're going to get theirs.
Yeah.
And the
They,
more that we give them, as long as we do our due diligence as business owners to minimize our tax burden as much as possible, but still pay the amount we owe, if that's going up, that must be a gauge for good performance on our side.
yeah. And I think another part of that is, as far as the comfort aspect is, first off, none of us were really comfortable in our younger years, and the other reality of it is that with Parkinson's law, that person could earn $100,000 and feel like they're crunched, and then if you gave them 125
Right.
next year, they would just okay, now I can breathe a little bit. Let me go buy this, that, and the other thing. Now they're crunched
Crunched
again at
again.
one buck
Yep.
25, and it just keeps on same thing, right? We have a joke here in Boca Raton because it's pretty affluent. There's a lot of people making $500,000 a year here and spending $505,000 a year,
Oh yeah.
and that's a reality. And so sometimes that comfort level is that ignorance of the Parkinson's law, which just states the more you make, the more you spend, and it becomes a vacuum to spend more, right?
Yeah, our joke in my hometown, San Luis Obispo, California, is that everyone's house poor. I mean,
Yeah.
you just drive through
Yeah.
that coastal region, and you're like, these people have got it made. Like, no, all these people are losing their hair.
Yeah, exactly. That
All
is
their
the other
wealth is
case.
in that house, and if anything
Yeah.
happened to that house,
Toast. I'll say my current thing that I've been really keeping an eye on and seeing and trying to navigate a little bit is there definitely seems to be a splintering within the evidence-based spectrum there, kind of like I guess politics does, but you're ultimately seeing very good evidence-based chiropractors that practice differently, starting to have a little bit of infighting on things. And
sure.
if a chiropractor just practices evidence-based manipulation and refers out to other things, that person might be considered not practicing evidence informed. And if there's a person that's only doing, if a chiropractor is only doing rehab, they're kind of catching some flack as well on that. So I definitely kind of keep my eye on some of that for sure. Seems like that's happening.
You classified as rehab. I think there are chiropractors that are specifically just want to be personal trainers with a
Yeah.
license. But one thing that I've seemed to notice, I used to be critical of the chiropractic colleges and the way that they controlled information on their campuses. Once again, steel manning it, understanding why they would do that, but also, their sort of constraint on information and control that they would play. Because at times, that constraint would lead to them teaching some really old,
Yeah.
outdated stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then there is this other aspect where they would allow certain factions onto their campus.
Hmm.
And the thing with the students, that I've learned over time after speaking to so many campuses and so many students is that they do consider anything that is spoken on their campus, regardless of its veracity, regardless of who says it. If it's said on a campus, it's almost like it's gospel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so a lot of these campuses are, because of whatever regional expertise they bring onto the campus, they're all adopting their own sort of gospels as they go.
Yeah.
And whether the gospel is good or bad, I'm not making that judgment call. Like the Motion Palpation Institute is a gospel on certain campuses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then when the students graduate from those campuses, that becomes part of their life, part of their practice, part of what they
Mm-hmm.
believe, part of what they speak out into the community. And you can say the same for rehab to performance. I don't know what the straight things are, but there's like the karate adjusters or
Yeah, exactly.
the ninja adjuster karate guys, and
Yeah.
whatever they say on a campus becomes a gospel that the students bring out. Um, and so some of those gospels, I think, have been taken way too far out of scale. So,
Mm-hmm.
we had a time period where the like explain pain, neuroscience,
Yeah.
pain neuroscience, and all that became such a high gospel that other things that are very critical in practice, like manual therapies, were just sort of put in the dumpster, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
know, their value is completely taken out by some people who had the explain pain group or that kind of gospel permeated on their campus. So what you see is, like, over time, different factions come out of these schools based on what is allowed on their campus, in addition to what the schools teach, which is all more or less standardized to
Mm-hmm.
help these students pass the board. The extracurricular stuff seems to be magnified as a gospel. And then you get it, like, chiropractors for being as open and fluid and, like, libertarian or liberal thinking, like open-minded thinking, are very rigid people
Yeah.
for the most part, and how they practice and how they approach things. So they don't change much
Mm-hmm.
after they get off of their campus. They don't change the way they do things very much. They might add a couple things to the toolbox, but they still deliver it the way that they sort of started to deliver it. And so you get little factions that grow over time, and then
Mm-hmm.
factions like our faction, whatever our faction was, we're
Mm-hmm.
now in our mid 40s and the
Yeah.
50s and all that. And then there's a younger crew coming up, and they've got their younger set of, like, gurus
Mm-hmm.
and folks telling them what's up. And that's where the disparity comes from, is because nobody really meets up and says, here's how we used to do it, or here's how we do it. How can we make all this stuff better together?
Yeah.
And that was definitely a thought or an intention for having these forward thinking chiropractic live events, was to bring Len Fays, who are in their
Mm-hmm.
80s, and then bring a young doc, like Taylor Pramer
Mm-hmm.
from MPI, who's in his 20s, and let's have a conversation about how things still work the
Mm-hmm.
same or how things need to be different. And those conversations still need to happen.
Yeah, they do. And I think people need to realize that there's a lot of ways of practicing evidence-based, chiropractic, whether we're talking about the adjustment or soft tissue or rehab or pain science, things like that. And if a doctor chooses to do some of that and not all of that, but refers out when appropriate, then that is a good level of care. And you know, time is not the factor of what evidence based is. Yes, there can be a point of no return for sure, but we're kind of seeing some of that. But that's a whole other topic. Let's take a break from today's episode and announce our first sponsor. This is going to be Propel Marketing and Design. I've known Darcy Sullivan for years. We've worked hand in hand on my websites. I don't trust anybody else to do the search engine optimization. She does a great job. There's so much to it. A lot of the lingo and the words are beyond my comprehension, but it's just amazing work that she does. And if you're really going to get results with Google, you have to make sure your website is SEO optimized. And I really don't want you doing it yourself as a chiropractor. So you just have to have this type of stuff done. And if you're looking to get more organic online traffic that pulls in new patients, Propel Marketing and Design is currently offering chiropractors who listen to this podcast a free SEO website review. The free review will help you uncover methods that will improve your website and boost your search engine visibility. Head over to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor and schedule your free SEO website review. You won't regret it. She gets great results. Your website needs this. Your search results need this. Head on over there to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor to get your free SEO website review. So let's move into your future excitement for the profession.
My future excitement for the profession. Well, you know, there's never been a greater time to be a chiropractor, Kevin. I know
I love
you've
that
never
one.
heard that before.
Nope, nope.
Um, we have a good product.
Mhm.
As long as you have a good product and there is a need for the product, there's always opportunity for the future. Low back pain is still at epidemic levels.
Mhm.
You know, no, it seems like no side these days, whether you want to talk about the side uh, that puts bones out of place back into place to relieve life force or whatever, and say that they
Mhm.
don't just treat the low back. They're getting rid of, they've never accepted just low back pain or
Mhm.
embraced it. And then you have the folks who really, you know, they just want to be personal trainers. Please pay me to work you out. Like they're not embracing back pain as much anymore either. And like that's a product that we can deliver that is very efficient and good. And if anyone wanted to grab that bull by the horns and embrace it and do the things, there's basically 6 basic simple things to manage a small business,
Mhm.
and do those things efficiently, we'd all be very good at it. There's a
Yeah.
lot of potential because there's a lot of things being done not very good, that if we
Yeah,
just
and
started
obviously,
doing them good, we could corner a market.
yeah, especially because obviously the medical model is not doing a good job at all, and people are starting, I think, to get it and run from that for sure. So that's positive, and we need to be there and branding appropriately and doing the things appropriately to corner that market in a lot of ways. And I mean, even if you bumped it up just shit 5 or 10%, it'd be amazing what it would do for us.
Right. Yeah. And it's, you know, appropriate messaging, appropriate marketing, you know, ethically and uh, person focused, not practice focused, and you know, understanding the sales process, which is not some sort of shtick, or
Mhm.
you're not selling a Hyundai when you're selling. You're just connecting people's problem to your service and showing them how they can buy it in an easy manner. Understanding cash flow concepts, which you talk about constantly because you know it's a big issue with chiropractors and cash
Yeah,
flow,
it
and
is.
leadership and appropriately pricing your product. You know, those are the 6 things. And
Yeah.
if people can just get a wrap on those and
Yeah.
deliver the product like they know they can, we'll do fantastic.
We will, and I know I try not to come across as like making it all about money, but I do think that I've put in enough years as a clinician and done that part of it and been in the trenches of it to where I can say, hey, yeah, look, you can be very sound clinically, but you also can thrive financially, and that's something that I think people just need to understand, and it needs to be spoken about more. And there's ways of doing that. And I think that's what, I know you and I are trying to help a lot of chiropractors out. And one of those things is, and I'll go to my future excitement. And one of the trends I'm seeing, and I wouldn't call it a recent one, but I'm just seeing more and more really good chiropractors do this effectively to help with clinical outcomes, but also with cash flow confidence, and then ultimately, um, having profit margins that are healthy and having a business that is healthy. And that is add-on services. We've had laser for about 12 years, but we just recently added Shockwave. I know chiropractors that are adding dry needling, functional medicine. I'm seeing chiropractors that are integrating medically in their practice ethically, and so I'm seeing this, let's just call it add-on type service, that's helping the patient. Patients are willing to pay for it out of pocket. It's helping the chiropractors that are doing it right and effectively. And I just had Dr. David Rudnick on talk about that. And he's one of the more clinically minded,
Yeah,
ethical chiropractors I know, and
absolutely.
he's doing great with it, and patients are eating it up, and he's getting the results, and it's just by adding services that are filling a hole in your clinical that you don't have, like maybe you just struggle with that. You add that service to it. Patients are willing to pay for it. You now are kind of avoiding the commoditization trap, and so it could be that alternative because everybody bitches about the insurance reimbursement, and I get that. And so a lot of chiropractors have gone cash, but what I'm doing is I'm seeing a lot of chiropractors go in network or be in network, but with these add-on services, and now you got kind of the best of both worlds, and they're building
Right.
really nice practices. So I'm excited about how that's developing.
And the people are open their minds to it, or the chiropractors are open their minds to it. The irony in Oregon is massage services are covered really well, and even in the personal injury sphere. So
Hmm.
it's almost like in the state of Oregon, if you do not have massage alongside your chiropractic practice, there are certain businesses I can point out and be like, that one's not doing good. Just driving down the street, that one's doesn't have it. They're not going to make it. Uh, which is kind of like, uh, as from an advisory role, that's kind of one of the elevations, right? As you start to pick out these business concepts, and you can see it almost from the branding on down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, if a chiropractor in Oregon doesn't have massage, you know that they're not doing well,
Yeah.
because it's such a lucrative. The ones that are doing well in Oregon, you almost can't tell that they're chiropractic practices because they have so much massage going on.
Mhm. Yeah. And
And
Oregon is one of those states where insurance actually pays pretty well for you guys in network.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And as a state, it has personal injury protection, which covers all those,
Mhm.
rehab and all those things. So, not getting into whether people abuse that system or not, because there certainly will always be people who do abuse the system, but the ones who play by the rules and they document appropriately and they have appropriate care plans and all that, they do very, very well. And many of them have so many massage therapists on staff that also do cash services as well on the side.
Yeah.
It's like when you see a rehab-based, evidence-based chiropractor, the lone doc in the box who's doing all the soft tissue themselves and the chiropractic, you're like, you just want to go over there and shake them. Like, you don't have to live like this. I know you
Yeah.
want to be the hero in this story and you want to be the main healer, but there's so much more impact you can have on the world if you learn to delegate these
Yeah.
responsibilities. And that goes, like you said, for so many other Shockwave and laser is amazing. Class 4 laser is one of my favorite tools in the whole world,
Hmm.
as far as like a passive therapy.
Yep.
And it's like, you're onto something. You're onto something very big, but people have to stop thinking small. And if laser's not one of the dogmas that they learned on their campus, it's
Hmm.
hard for them to adopt, right? We're going to go back
Yeah.
to the previous story. If introducing other services or functional medicine or any of these other stories were not introduced to them on their campus, they're going to be skeptical as students, and they're going to be
Mhm.
skeptical as young docs, and they're not going to want to incorporate as easily.
Yeah.
And it could take them decades. It could take somebody decades to embrace these sort of things. And that's decades of, uh, once again, getting kicks in the teeth.
Yeah. Absolutely. And speaking of
Oh, I'm
getting
sorry.
kicked in
We're
the
supposed to be hopeful. We're supposed to be looking. These are hopeful things.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Less,
yeah.
less teeth getting kicked in. Think of the
Exactly.
impact you can have on the dental industry if you just adopt entrepreneurial concepts into your practice as soon as
Yeah.
possible.
No, it's a big part of it for sure. And I think, one of the things people do get hung up a little bit is the cost of one of these things, right? Like a laser or shockwave. But there are really good financing options. I'm not a financial expert, but part of being an entrepreneur and a business owner is taking some risks. And
It's not that,
uh,
Kevin. It's not
right.
it's, yeah, they look at the dollar sign, like, okay, what's a shockwave machine?
Mhm.
20,000?
Can
I
be,
don't
yeah.
know,
Yep.
for 15,000, 12,000. It's not that cost. It's the cost in their mind of knowing that if they spent that much money on a machine, they're going to have to do the work.
That's a good
It's
point
that
too.
cost.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
cost of, like, if I spend $15,000 on a machine, I'm going to have to now be that person that steps
Mhm.
out there and has to sell the machine
And promote it.
and promote it and plan it. And a lot of the folks don't want to do that work.
Yep. No, that's a very good point. Let's take a short break for one of our great sponsors, TrackStat. It is a new type of software plugin for your EHR that combines patient communication, marketing, automation, and statistics with patient and employee tracking. Built by chiropractors for chiropractors, it shows your team what to focus on each day. See patient visit habits, missing information, unpaid bills, insurance collection visit average, and more. Great visibility of data so you can focus on filling your office with your best patients. When you can see what your staff and patients are doing or not doing and take action accordingly, your profits naturally grow. Take TrackStat for a test drive in your office with our free trial. Not a techie, no problem, we can help. To get started on your free trial, visit trackstat.org and watch the demo. That is trackstat.org. Hey there, chiropractors. Are you tired of feeling like your dream practice is just out of reach? I know how frustrating it can be trying to balance patient care, paperwork, and billing while striving for that ideal practice you've always envisioned. But guess what? There's a solution that can make your dream a reality. Introducing Genesis Chiropractic Software, the key to unlocking your dream practice. Picture this: no more drowning in paperwork, no more scheduling headaches, and no more billing nightmares. With Genesis, you'll have everything you need to streamline your practice and focus on what truly matters, providing exceptional care to your patients. Imagine a practice where every patient interaction is seamless, every appointment is perfectly scheduled, and every billing process is smooth as silk. That's the power of Genesis. Ready to turn your dream practice into a reality? Schedule your consultation with Genesis today and take the first step towards practice success. Don't let the challenges of running a practice hold you back. With Genesis, your dream practice is within reach. Visit www.genesischiropracticsoftware.com/MCM to get started. Trust me, you won't regret it. Genesis Chiropractic Software, because every practice owner deserves to achieve their dreams. And rolling right on, I was going to say, speaking of getting kicked in the teeth, what are some of your biggest concerns moving forward for the chiropractor, or even if it's for the profession in general?
I don't have a lot of concerns for the profession. It's a profession now. It's been around a long time. It's going to adopt or adapt, and it's going to be fine. Um, I have seen the inner workings of the ACA, and a lot of people don't agree with how an organization operates, or that organization as the leaders of the profession when it comes to Capitol Hill and all those sort of things. But I've seen the people who do that work, and they work very hard, and they're very passionate, they're very well intentioned, and they're doing a really, really good job. So I'm not concerned about the profession. I'm concerned about the doctors, the folks. Once again, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs, and if you ask them, they'll tell you that's what they are. I still tell people when they ask me what I do, I'll still always say chiropractor first, because that's what I am and that's what I do. But there's a more and more of me inside of me that kind of ekes out wanting to also say entrepreneur, business person. It comes up more and more as like what I am. If you ask me in my early 30s, what are you? Chiropractor. Mid 30s, mid 40s chiropractor, but I also do a little bit of business stuff. Now mid 40s, I'm like chiropractor and business person entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And who knows what happens when I'm in my 60s, right? It might be straight straight entrepreneur. But I am married to it. I own it. A lot of people, as Professor Scott Galloway says, a lot of people will struggle in their business endeavors when they're divorced from their business. And that means emotionally, I don't want to talk about passion. Like, I don't think you have to have you probably do have to have somewhat of a passion for what you do here as a chiropractor, obviously. But even if you're married to your entrepreneur endeavor, even if you're married to the process, still a certain percentage of businesses are going to fail. And chiropractors don't fail like a restaurant. It's not like they're open one day and you're like, man, I love the linguine over at, Frederico's. And you're like, a month later, like, let's go back to Frederico's. Like, they're fucking closed, man. They're gone. Chiropractors don't do that. They just languish.
Yeah.
like really, really languish for a long time until eventually the
Yeah.
chiropractor's like old and like, this is what I always wanted anyways, was to see 5 people a day. Or or they end up working for somebody else, or they end up in
Yeah.
like this conglomerate, or they don't just like shut down the next day.
Yeah.
That's usually the police are usually involved in that one. But the
Languish is the,
entrepreneurs, if they're not married to it,
yeah.
I mean, even if you are married to it, there's still a high failure rate. So the ratio is high in the entrepreneur business world. Then we have chiropractors who are not married to it and wondering why they can't, air quote, live comfortably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm concerned about the ratio.
Yeah.
And it's
That's,
up to us to show people, it's up to you with the success you're generating with people in my modern chiropractic marketing. It's up to us with the people that we're getting success with Chiropractic Success Academy
mhm.
and Forward Thinking Chiropractic, the community that's built there. It's up to us to show people that this is can be and is a wonderful profession to be in. You can do great things for people. You can be proud of yourself on your deathbed. Your children can be proud of what you've done for the world, and you can make some freaking money doing it. You just have to get married to it again, and we need to increase this ratio of success.
Languish was a perfect word for that. And it's something that, I remember hearing that word a couple years ago and thinking like, oh, that's a good word, but I didn't put it, together as far as what a lot of chiropractors deal with. And it's fascinating because it rolls right into what my big concern is, and that is the future burnout of chiropractors. And I think it looks a lot
Yeah.
different than historically we've seen with chiropractors, because we think of the high volume doc that just is like, breaks their back over patients, and it's just too much volume, and the money's there but the volume just kills them and they burn out. I'm seeing what's happening now, what I'm concerned about with the newer chiropractors coming out. If they don't figure out clinical efficiency, if they don't figure out marketing and positioning, if they don't figure out how to avoid that commoditization trap, and just really start to understand that you're in a results-based economy, not a time-based economy, and they don't get this squared away and build a practice that has margin, that they can reinvest the margin into team members so that they can slowly, delegate things off their plate. Like when I was 28, yeah, I used to do a lot of rehab with patients myself. I did the ART, I did the adjustment, I swiped the credit card, but as soon as I started adding, I was able to stay comfortable without raising my income for a few years. And I was reinvesting some of that money to getting people around me. And now I don't want to do that stuff. And I was kind of joking around to you before we recorded it. Like it's cool to be broke at 28. It's not cool to be broke at 42 when you got a family. And
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing is what you just said, is a lot of these chiropractors have languished for a long period of time. And that languish, it's not that extreme burnout where it's like, "Oh," you're like running 1,000 miles per hour and then you burn out. It's this slow burn. And it's like the frog in the water boiling type of deal. And then they're hitting this realization at our age that, and they might be in that chasm I mentioned earlier from one strength to the other. Well, they never
Oh
really
yeah.
had a strength from the beginning. And so now
Yeah.
it's hard to get to the next one. And that's my concern, because I don't know what the future is going to look like for these folks, these chiropractors that aren't able to get out of that commoditization trap that a lot of them are heading for various reasons. And so I'm glad you brought up that word language,
I
because
think
it makes
frog
a
in the
lot of sense.
waters, I think frog in the water is a great perspective. I think, and it's not even burnout. I think it's dismay sometimes.
Yeah.
Just, I try to tell my kids, whenever you're upset in the world about something, it's usually when your expectations didn't meet reality.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like, you're upset at a boy because you expected
Mhm.
him to behave a certain way and he didn't, or you're upset at the government. You had these preconceived notions of what the government should be doing for you, and they're not doing it.
Mhm.
And there are people who come into this profession with a very poor understanding of what it is. Go back to the schools. Some of them sell a line of bullshit to people to get them to sign up for the schools. Um, Other people, oh, you can work in sports. What is
Yeah.
sports? There's all these misconceptions. Oh, we get a lot of folks, especially at the college in the Pacific Northwest, you get sort of the Pacific Northwest type of hippie type of person sometimes,
Mhm.
like this is going to be a massage type gig, and just get
Yeah.
my certification. And other people definitely deny that they ever do this, but they absolutely do join this profession because it's the easiest way to get called a doctor. And they'll deny it to their own graves, but it's true that that's why they did this.
Yeah.
Not understanding when I see my um, dermatologist, and I have a skin cancer that needs to be pretty much worked on every year, so I get a new scar every year. She's cutting a new piece off of me every year like a
Mhm.
ghoul. uh, she's not just doing me and five other people that day.
Yeah.
She's probably doing 40 to 50 patients that day. She's sweating, running from room to room,
Hmm.
staging her small surgery procedures. And it's like she's married to her business.
Yeah. Yeah.
You she knows what her gig is. Somebody
Mhm.
sat her down and said, if you want to be a dermatologist, this is what reality is.
Yeah.
You fucking run room to room, cutting pieces off of people, and you run all day long. And
Yeah.
then you get like 2 or 3 days off for the lab
Mhm.
work to come back.
Yeah.
And then you run for 2 or 3 more days. That's your life. Are you ready to do this? Yes, let's go. But nobody sits chiropractic students down and go, this is what the real life is. Which, by the way, with chiropractic is like anything you freaking want.
It really is. It really is. And I
You
think
can do
going,
almost anything you want within the
yeah,
boundaries. You could
yeah.
be totally creative. You could be Dr. Josh Axe, or you could be the most serious clinician
Mhm.
or a researcher. You could do anything you want. You just got to understand the rules of the game, and no one wants to sit down and be honest about the rules.
Yeah, and going back to your comfort part, that particular thing you were talking about as far as comfort was financial comfort, but typically there's an inverse relationship too. It's like, yeah, a person might like that dermatologist or a lot of chiropractors might be financially comfortable, but they have to get out of their comfort zone and they have to be uncomfortable working really hard and maybe doing the things that they struggle with to then become a little more comfortable financially, but it doesn't mean they're not like her life isn't pure comfort, right? Like in that
Right,
example, right? It's as an
right,
entrepreneur, like you're pushing the envelope and you're working hard and yes, you get some financial rewards hopefully, but the problem is where really gets shitty is if you're working really hard and you got no financial reward. But
right.
if you do it right, you will get that way. And I think what comfort means is different. I want to just share an interesting podcast because I know you're a parent, I am, and a lot of our audience is. But even if you're not, maybe you're a Gen Z or younger chiropractor trying to figure out how to manage all these things. But it's
Those
called the
dinks ain't
knowledge.
having any kids. Those dinks are never going to have kids.
That's awesome. Dual income, no children, right?
Yep.
That's a good way to be for sure financially. But it's the Knowledge Project podcast, and it's with the guest was Abigail Schreier, and it's the parent
She's one
therapy
of my
trap.
favorites. Yep. She's one of the favorites in our house.
It's amazing. Like it's such a good episode. And I know some people might get offended by it, but it's talking about bad therapy and how like just everybody's been just therapy to death as a kid. And so when they get to real world, and it starts to kick them in the teeth, like we said, and it's hard, and chiropractic is hard, and the profession is hard, and insurance companies suck. They have a tendency to not take any responsibility for it, and they want to blame all the external factors, and it's not fair, and it's okay, I feel this way, like it's all these things. And she does such a good job in that episode, of talking about where all that's gone wrong. And I found it interesting, and it kind of ties into what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I don't want to, we don't want to resort to that two old white guys conversation of like, we are not boomers. We're younger than that.
We're Gen X, we're the best, right?
Yeah, we don't want to resort to that talk of like, if you guys just work harder, you can have everything you want. Like
Yeah.
these younger kids that are coming up, they got dealt a rough hand. It,
Yep.
it is a rough hand. I wouldn't want theirs. I didn't want my situation. But I definitely wouldn't want their situation either. So I can definitely once again steel man that concept that
Hmm.
they've got a rough hand to deal, but that does not negate the idea that whether you are a competitive person or not, this is all competition. It's friendly
Yep.
competition. But it's competition. It's fight to survive. Do you want this or not?
Mhm.
How bad, when you look at your children in the eyes, or your the wall where an extra bedroom would be if you had children, but you're a dink and you just have your spouse with you and you're not going to have kids ever. Like, okay, so what? So dinks get what? An extra car in the garage? I'm not, like, their vacation tickets, whatever you're looking at that you're passionate about. Like, how hard are you willing to look at your children in the eyes and be like, this, I gotta fight. I have no more excuses. There are no excuses to make here, which is a lot easier when you do have kids. They take a lot of the excuses off the table.
Yeah.
But whether you're looking at your spouse, your family legacy, your bank account, whatever you're looking at, how hard am I willing to get married to this and fight? And no one's asking
Mhm.
you to get married to a sleazeball way of being.
Yeah.
We are all offering now these tremendously ethical, elegant ways to be a great chiropractor and do great business. Just how willing are you to get married to that and get after that shit?
Absolutely, because you can do it the right way, and there are people to help you out. But this was cool, man. I'm glad we did this. What's new in the FTCA world coming up in the rest of
I
this
want this
year?
podcast to be evergreen and not
Hmm.
time.
Yep.
I have a new mission with the FTCA, and that is, I call them micro cohorts. So a lot of times people just need to kind of brush up on one specific subject matter.
Hmm. Hmm.
So with our members, and pretty much you have to be a member to do this. So, membership is what, $7 a month? It's a joke. Like, membership is just a token to say I'm down with what you're doing. It's not like I'm not buying a new boat. I have a kayak, but
Oh, there you go.
I'm not buying a new boat for anything. The micro cohorts for the members will be like just little 1 hour little mini lessons on things I think it's important for them to brush up on based on surveys that we've done within the group of what the group has said they think it's important to learn. Retrofitted that to actually offering these small courses to people on these concepts with one big course that incorporates them all. Um, and that's going to be ongoing. It's not a time thing, and I'm saying it out loud, so that means I'll actually do it, because it's been an idea for years, and I don't
Good.
do it unless I say it out loud.
Love it. Love it. Well, and
Podcast coming up. We got a podcast too. We have a Substack, so Substack's like our blog sort of thing, and um, it's for people who aren't into social media, because social media can be quite toxic, but they
yep.
still want to stay connected to the ideas and the organization and all that. Forwardthinkingchiro.substack.com. That'll give you all the sort of like insight to what's been going on within the group without having to deal with the toxicity of social media, which I have surely contributed to in my day. And other
That's
than that,
awesome.
I'm just like, if somebody has a question, reach out.
Mm.
Somebody has a
Absolutely.
question, reach out. If you want to learn, invest. And when you want to invest, that's when it's time to call up the CSA.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure. Man, believe it or not, July will be 6 years since we partnered
That's
up on
weird.
CSA. Six
Yeah.
years, and we're going strong, and it's growing, and we're breaking things to make sure it works. And you've been pumping out some good lessons on doubling your revenue and really trying to get chiropractors a guided course and support to help grow their practice and just start to get really, really literate in all things, growing a practice. And this is a great start for them to do that.
It's funny because, like I said before, it's a gym membership. You pay your membership, you go in, we have all the equipment, we have all the tools there for you. You still have to lift the weights, you still have to
Mhm.
break the sweat. There are some of us like you and I that are hanging out, and some of the other long-term OG gym members. So when someone has a question, they can ask a question like, oh yeah, this is how you do this or that. But it's still a gym membership. And there are some people who will come in there and be like, well, I didn't want a gym membership, I wanted one-on-one training.
Mhm.
And this is always branding and marketing 101. It's like, we told you it's a gym membership. If you want one-on-one training, it's not going to cost, that's like, and
Yeah.
it like that, like one-on-one training costs more than a gym membership, right? Like, we have to refer you out
Yeah.
to go to a one-on-one trainer who will train you on that stuff. And they're like, well, if you just would have done that, that would have been better. Like, well, that's available to you. What we are offering, something that was not available, that I know of before, for evidence-based chiropractors, which was You guys are all smart. As long as you're confident that you can implement on your own, that you're a big kid and you pull up your pants and you put them on one leg at a time like everybody else, and you can do this, and a little guidance along the way while you need it, we're here for you. If you need somebody to one-on-one go through some very deep intricacies and get to personally know you emotionally and all that, I know a guy. And he's got a thing. And that's available to you too.
Yeah, and we'd definitely like to collaborate on that, and CSA is part of that as well. And I love the gym analogy for sure. It makes a lot of sense. And I think, a lot of chiropractors now are used to have learning online. I mean, many of their
Yeah.
college programs were online, right? So it's not a foreign thing for these folks.
And the FTCA is like a 5K.
I
You
like
sign
it.
up, you get a little banner, and everybody runs. Some are wearing costumes, some are walking, some are running.
That's awesome.
Everyone gets a ribbon at the end.
It's like I just saw Jelly Roll ran a 5K,
Oh yeah,
and he's gonna aim for a marathon. It's like, okay, I like it. I like
good
it.
for him, man. Because that's what happens when you start to taste success. You kind of want to hang out a little bit longer.
Exactly.
Like, I
Well,
want
this
to.
was a pleasure. We'll have to do it again sooner, and then hopefully we can run into each other in person again soon.
Oh, that would be great. They doing that these days?
Occasionally.
I heard a rumor. I haven't seen a real chiropractor other than an ACA doc in a long time.
Yeah. That's awesome. We'll keep you posted.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time. And I worship the ground you walk on.
Same too, man. It's been a pleasure.
All right, bye.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time-free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things, and we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.